are up to page Samach Daled, and we in this book are dealing with some Kabbalistic ideas in Judaism, which have to do with a part of which has to do with what's called the Sfirot, or the Spheros. Maybe you're familiar with this terminology. But let's say for our purposes now, the Spheros are associated with different attributes. And the sphere that we're working on right now is Tiferet. And Tiferet is associated with things having to do with Torah study. And there are Spheros below the sphere of Tiferet, which are we call Netzach and Hod, Yisod and Malchus.
The difference between Sfirot and the Midot, like they're similar?
There's an interrelationship. Yeah, I mean there are certain types of certain of the Spheros are associated with Midos. There are 10 Sfirot, 3 upper ones called Chochmah, Bina, and Das, or Keser, Chochmah, and Bina. And these are more like faculties having to do with correlating in the human plane with things like intelligence, understanding, and wisdom. So those aren't really attributes as much as those are faculties. Mm-hmm. And then you have the lower 7 Spheros, which are Chesed, Devorah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchus. Those 7 are often associated with Midos, or attributes. And therefore, some of the Spheros are associated with Midos, but not all. And there are other Midos which are Midos and not associated with Spheros. And there's a general overlap between these. So that some of the Spheros are to the right, and some are viewed as being to the right, some to the left, and some in the center, where they're actually drawn that way. But it's not so much a spatial thing as much as it's an essence having to do with these Spheros, where the right is generally viewed as being giving, masculine. The left is generally viewed as feminine and being a recipient. And the middle Spheros are more of a balance between the two. Tiferet is the sphere which is balanced between Chesed to the right and Gvura to the left. Chesed is loving kindness. Gvura is kind of strength, associated sometimes with self-control. Tiferet is going to be the balance of knowing, to give, but also to withhold in proper measure. So there's a proper balance of the one hand giving, but in a way which is going to be productive, constructive giving, and not irresponsible giving. And therefore, Tiferet is associated with Yaakov. If Chesed is Avram and Gvura is Yitzchak, Tiferet, which is the fusion of Chesed and Gvura, is Yaakov. And Yaakov is an Ishtam, Yoshev Olim. He is a perfect man who's described as sitting in the tents of Torah, and therefore Tiferet represents Torah. Now, he said that there was a relationship between Tiferet and the spheres below it. There's an influence of Torah that comes through Tiferet down into the spheres below it, which is Netzach to the right and Hod to the left, corresponding to Moshe and Aharon, and also Yesod, corresponding to Yosef, and finally Malchus, which is David. And there are 3 areas where this Tiferet kind of influences these lower spheros. One has to do with, and it correlates to the way a Torah scholar interacts with the world, his environment. So that the one plane is the relationship between a Torah scholar and his students, and that manifests the relationship between Tiferet and the spheres just below it, to the right and to the left, which are Netzach and Hod, which are like the students of Tiferet. So that the way a Torah scholar acts with students actually has an effect in the spiritual realm of the influence between Tiferet and Netzach and Hod. A person can act in a humble, beneficent way, and that's going to ensure the smooth and proper transmission of Torah from himself to his students. The result is going to be a smooth, proper transition of energy, of energy and flow between Tiferet and Netzach and Hod, and that'll ultimately be a very beneficial thing. That's the first tier. The second tier is the relationship between the Torah scholar and, let's say, poor people. And that the Torah scholar should not view himself as being elevated and above your average, simple, poor people. But on the contrary, the Torah scholar should be looking to find anybody who he can share Torah with, anybody who would be willing to listen, anybody who he can share this experience of Torah with. And when a person does that, he engenders this type of similar relationship in the spheres above, between Tiferet and Yesod, where Yesod as a sphere is viewed as being like a pauper, the poor. Why? Because in the whole apparatus of the spheros, the flow coming from the highest ones down below are finally collected singularly into Yesod, which is the foundation sphere, and therefore everything it has, it receives from above, and therefore it's like the pauper, the poor. So a Torah scholar who is acting properly towards the poor of Israel is going to be ensuring a proper flow of the sphere from Tiferet to Yesod as well. And then the third tier is that between the rabbi or the Torah scholar and the Am Haaretz. Am Haaretz are the simple people, uneducated in Torah, the people of the land, the coarse, earthly people who have very little connection to Torah learning. A Torah scholar might tend to be arrogant or prideful or disparage these people who are just working people and don't have the particular sensitivity to appreciate Torah, and might come to ostracize them as well. These people are important. They have no connection to Torah. That would be wrong. This is what we left off with the last class. Rather, the Torah scholar should make himself available for and also show appreciation and honor and respect even for the Amei Haaretz, the people who are very simple and maybe have no Jewish education whatsoever. They're ignoramuses. It's not a matter of being poor. They might be very wealthy. If they're poor at all, they're poor b'das. They're poor in their Torah knowledge. And this way, a Torah scholar who is humbly respecting even the Amei Haaretz, who are very far away from Torah, he is going to cause a proper, healthy relationship to come about between Tiferet and the final sphere of Malchus. Of Malchus. And we said that Malchus as a sphere is associated with the earth as well. Just like these Amei Haaretz are. Why? Because the whole interrelationship between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is sometimes viewed with the analogy of an inverted tree. So that in the spiritual realm, the spheros are like roots, which tap into the source. They draw sustenance from the spiritual realm, down, 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 through the root system until it reaches like the trunk, which is located in the final sphere of Malchus. And then from Malchus, it sprouts forth into the physical world in the form of like a trunk and branches and trees and leaves and fruit, which ultimately reach down into this world and sustain the physical world. So that the juncture between the spiritual and the physical is exactly in that place, that sphere of Malchus, where the kingship of God is made known to the physical, finite, revealed world. And that's where the Amei Haaretz are. The Amei Haaretz are also at the earth level, dealing with bringing forth vitality from the earth in order to provide for the world. The Torah scholars are doing it from the spiritual realm down. The Amei Haaretz are doing it from the physical world up. But that means that they have a symbiotic relationship, which meets where? At the earth. That's Malchus. So that the Amei Haaretz are working on the physical manifestation of Malchus, which is earth, which bring forth bounty, physical bounty, but that's actually coming from the spiritual blessing that's being brought down from the Torah scholars. And therefore, it works together. It's a joint effort. The Torah scholars are providing the spiritual bounty, which results in the physical bounty, and the Amei Haaretz are using their work on the land to actually realize that and bring out that physical bounty into fruition, and therefore provide for the Torah scholars so that they can eat and live and sustain themselves and so forth and so on. So it's actually a symbiotic relationship.
So one can't exist by itself.
That's right. And that is one of the ideas between en kemach and Torah. En Torah and kemach. They work together. And therefore the Torah scholars should not be arrogant and haughty or ostracize the Amei Haaretz, because the Torah scholars use the Amei Haaretz as a venue through which to bring the Shefa down into the world, and they also derive benefit in a physical sense from the Shefa that comes about through the Amei Haaretz as well. And therefore he says that we should all view, the Torah scholars should view all aspects, all levels of Jewish society as Am Hashem, the people of Hashem, where everyone has a particular role, everyone has a particular function, and no one should ostracize the other. And he says, this is the last point that we left off with on Samach Daled, that the Torah scholar who denigrates the Amei Haaretz, the result is that his own children are not Torah scholars. And he uses this idea to explain the teaching in the Talmud. Why is it that Torah scholars, very often their children themselves are not Torah scholars? Because these Torah scholars, because of their Torah knowledge, are haughty over the simple people. And since they're haughty over the simple people, God intervenes and prevents these people's children from becoming Torah scholars to show them that excellence in Torah, or success in Torah, is not something which is hereditary. It's something that a person gains through hard work, and something that a person has to sustain through sincerity as well. And the author here uses this analogy in a beautiful way, saying that a person who disparages the Torah scholars is actually causing a klipa, which is like a spiritual occluding agent to surround his own children. Why? He's denigrating everything that has to do with the process of being fruitful. That is the role of the Amei Aretz in bringing about the expression of the spiritual abundance through the physical world. As a result of this, he's kind of taking out the Malchus. He's occluding, he is preventing, he is refraining from expressing the importance of the Amei Aretz in the sphere of Malchus. As a result of this, there also becomes an occlusion of Malchus by him, so that his own fruit, his own seed, also becomes occluded. And there is removed from them the importance of Torah. This is kind of what we left off with last time. So that brings us up to Samach Daled. L'chach lo yiske leben, the first line. And therefore, the Torah scholar, lo yiske leben shehiyeh bo ora Torah. Such a Torah scholar who takes lightly the Amei Aretz, he disparages them, he will not have children who themselves have the light of the Torah. K'de'isa Gemara, as in the Gemara in Nedorim, page Pei Aleph. Ella. So this would be the result of acting in this wrong way, elevating himself as a Torah scholar above the Amei Haaretz, and therefore severing the relationship between Tiferet and Malchus. That would be the wrong thing to do. Ella, rather, what he should do instead is Yisnaheg imahem benachas. He should act with them in a very pleasant way. Al pi darkam, according to their own mindset, their own behavior, their own way of doing things. Meaning, right? Not to be aloof and remove himself from these Amei Haaretz, but to actually speak to them on their level. Ke'ein hatiferes shu mashpia lamalchus. In this way, he would be emulating the Sephira of Tiferet, shu mashpia lamalchus, which is mashpia and gives bounty, blessing, and energy to the lowest of the spheres, which is Malchus. Umanhigo kafi onius daita, and Tiferet provides for the needs of Malchus according to its lowly position. So that a Talmid Chacham who is like Tiferet, and he's caring for the needs of the Amei Haaretz, he's acting in a line with the way that Tiferet should be his relationship with Malchut. That Tiferet is giving over its influence to the Sephira of Malchus. Kidatan shel noshim kala, the Gemara says, because the mindset of women is light, meaning women have more of Torah sources indicate that women's more traditional role requires them to act in a way which nowadays we might call like multitasking. So to multitask, a person has to be able to be agile and have a light head. I don't mean to say an airhead. It doesn't mean being stupid. What it means is, right, they have the ability to change gears very quickly. And women need that in order to run at home and take care of the children and take care of the livelihood and do many different types of things that they do. Whereas men, who are generally, let's say, focused on Torah, don't have to have the same, the minds don't work the same way. The minds work in a more penetrating way. And each one has, of course, there are exceptions. There are men whose minds have more of a light-hearted set in their mind, and women who have more of a penetrating. But generally speaking, the traditional role that the Torah kind of prescribes for women, which is very important, requires more of a multitasking type of thinking. Whereas men, who are generally more connected and more required to study the depths of the Torah, have to have a more single-minded kind of approach to looking at things. So what he's saying here is that when a man is engaged with a woman, even though his thought process might lock onto a subject and want to discuss it very thoroughly and in depth, he has to adapt himself, right, to the more female way of thinking, which is to think about more topics, changing topics more frequently, not necessarily going into them in great depth, but covering them sufficiently to give the person a feeling of satisfaction and then moving on. So he's using this as an example, therefore, how a Torah scholar should interact with the Amei Haaretz. They're not deeply rooted in Torah thoughts. That's not where their minds are. That's not their mindset. So what he has to do is, like we're told regarding a man's interaction with a woman, namely his wife, he has to try and put his mind into her mindset in order to provide for her satisfaction, her pleasure, and her way of thinking, and so forth and so on. The same thing should apply regarding a Torah scholar and the Amei Haaretz. Right? He can't go putting onto their intellects the weight of the different Torah ideas that he's immersed in all day long. They're not there. They don't do that. They do something else. They're interested in the weather because it has an effect on their crops. They're interested in they're interested in the land because it has an effect on their crops. They're interested in the market because it has an effect on their livelihood. These are not negative things. These are important things. If you don't have them, the world doesn't run. Yeah, but the point is, the Torah scholar's got to be broad-minded enough to get out of what might be otherwise a very insular way of thinking, which results from his being engaged in the Torah, and actually use the thought process that he's given. He's empowered by the Torah to be able to move into many different ways of thinking. Sometimes more superficial, sometimes more in depth. Sometimes about holy subjects, sometimes about profane. Everything should be like l'shem shamayim. So when a Torah scholar is required to do this, what he's doing is he's using his midah of Tiferet and bringing it down to the level of Malchus in order to seed Malchus with the influence of the Torah. And therefore he might be engaged in a conversation with a person who's just a workaday person. Doesn't mean he's not intelligent. He just doesn't dedicate his life to in-depth Torah study. But he should engage in this person with conversations that interest that person, as long as they're not prohibited things, and as much as possible try and seed seed the planes of this person's mind with ideas having to do with Torah. So he might find an opportunity for some Torah teaching to be introduced to a discussion on politics, or some Torah teaching introduced into a discussion about, ethics or some business deal or whatever the case may be. And this way, what he's doing is he's bringing Tiferet into Malchus, and he's seeding the Malchus, which is more of a this worldly inclined sphera. He's seeding it with the guiding principles of Torah. Included in this, shelo yisgael kol halush das. He also has to be very careful not to be arrogant over people who are poor of mind, meaning they were not endowed with a great degree of intelligence. Shehem bichlal ofer haaretz. These folks are like the dust of the earth, because the Amei Haaretz are not necessarily unintelligent. They just don't dedicate their lives to Torah study. They might be intelligent. Just like I said, they're not necessarily poor. They might be wealthy. They're just not dedicated to a life of Torah study. But you also have people who are not inclined to study Torah because they don't have the brains to do it. They're just not endowed mentally, with the faculties needed to learn Torah. So a person should not be haughty over them either. For this reason, the sages, the true, sincere sages of earlier times, were not, generally speaking, they were not haughty and arrogant about their Torah. For example, the story we have regarding Rav Hamnuna in the Parsha of Breshis, which is referring to the part of the Zohar, which corresponds to Parshas Breshis. And there, in that story, if I remember correctly, I see there's a note down here as well. Mem Hey, there's quite a long note. We could do that note, but my recollection of the event is that Rav Hamnuna appeared, I believe, to some of the other sages that are described there in the Zohar in a Torah discourse, but he he did not disclose himself who he was. He kind of just appeared as a simple individual, and that's because he wanted to reveal to them, he wanted to engage them in a discussion of deep Torah secrets, but he didn't want to get any credit or recognition for that. So he hid his identity. Let's see if that fits in with the note here. The note says, Rav Elazar, Hava Azil, he brings, I guess, the language of the Zohar, that Rav Elazar was going, Rabbi Abba Bahade, and Rabbi Abba was going together with him, V'havetoin Had Gavra Abesrayu, and there was somebody who was going after them. Potach v'amar ha'u Gavra. So, this is Aramaic, by the way. That person who was going along with them or carrying something behind them, he initiated a conversation. Ashkach Rebbe Elazar b'milui. So Rebbe Elazar, he paid attention to the words that this person was saying. Amalei, antu breder v'hamnuna, Saba, are you the son of Rav Hamnuna Saba, the elderly Rav Hamnuna? Antu bred in Nehiru Deraisa, are you he whose words are illuminated, whose words of Torah are illuminated with life, with light? Van toin abasran, and you're carrying after us, meaning you're just acting as a laborer, as a schlepper. Amulei, they said to him, if you don't mind, sir, please tell us your name, meaning tell us who you are. Posach v'amar, he opened, he said, etc. And he started elaborating on a verse to tell its hidden meanings, the Raisa, Huda Asa. So he started talking about different secret meanings of the Torah verses and so forth, without telling who he was. In the meantime, lo hamule, they didn't see him. Kamu v'istaklu l'kol sitrin, and all of a sudden they lost sight of him. They looked all over, v'lo hamule, and they couldn't find him. L'basa shaita, after some time, Omer Rabbi Abba said, V'dai dohu Rav Hamnuna Sabo. That was probably Rav Hamnuna, the elder, Da'asal Gaban, who came along with us, Mehahu Alma, from the world to come, meaning from the spiritual realm. Oh, that's the point. Rav Hamnuna Sabo had already passed away, but he appeared to them in a physical form, and they thought that he was just a wayfarer. And he engaged them in words of Torah because he wanted to reveal to them certain secrets of the Torah. And I suppose they suspected it was him, maybe because of the topic that he was discussing, but he wouldn't own up to the fact that it was him. And then all of a sudden he disappeared. He went back into the spiritual realm. And they were left there realizing that it must have been the spirit of Rav Hamnuna that came and revealed itself to them and engaged them in a conversation of Torah, but didn't want to reveal it was him, so that they wouldn't give him like the honor and the recognition that it was him as they were speaking to him. And then they said, once we realized that we got wind of the fact that it was probably him, he disappeared. And therefore, you see, he tried to hide his identity even after he died, and it was his spirit who was being revealed to these people. But he didn't want to be given any special recognition as a result of his being Rav Hamnuna. And when they suspected that it was him, he disappeared. So this the author here brings as an example of a person who acts very humbly and non-assuming in regarding his Torah wisdom. And now back in the text, he gives another example. Ukeuvda Rav Hagai. And we have another similar example regarding Rav Hagai. What was that event? Amule, that's note Memvav. Amule manat. They said to him, who are you? Amule, Yudoyana, I'm a Jew. Amar Rav Yesei, Vadai dohu Rabbi Hagai. That's certainly Rabbi Hagai. Debechol Yemui, Laboy lahachzal game kama diyada, who during his entire life would never reveal what he actually knew, meaning he was concealing, he was hiding, he out of modesty and humility, he would not display what he knew. So this must be another example in the Zohar where some sages were approached by the spirit of a deceased sage, and he wouldn't reveal who he was until they figured out it must be him, and he disappeared. Upetikunim, back into the text, and also in the part of the Zohar called the Tikkunei Zohar, it talks about Ha'usaba de bo'el nashkole, there was a certain elder who others wanted to kiss him out of respect and honor. Even to nowadays, some communities, particularly Sephardim, have a custom of taking the sage's hand and kissing him. So in those times, they just wanted to do the same thing. They somehow kiss the sage, the Torah scholar, out of respect for him, but he wouldn't agree. He wouldn't let them. He would pull his hand away, or he wouldn't. And it says parach. He flew away. Memzain. Kam Reb Shimon. The Nashkale. So Rabbi Shimon, maybe it's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself, went to kiss Hahusaba, that particularly elderly rabbi, who must have been, again, some type of a spirit. Parach v'lo itchazai. So he flew away and he would no longer appear. Upetikunim, Mizar Chadash, and part of another part of the Zohar Chadash, Hosif, Amar Rabbi Shimon, V'dai, Hahusaba lo bo'ar l'natla minan l'nashkalei. Certainly that elderly rabbi did not want us to kiss him out of respect. Ubigindo parach, and for this reason he flew away. So you see here, then the author brings different examples of great Torah sages who fled from honor. Not only did they not show behavior of arrogance against others, but on the contrary, they were extremely humble. They did not want to have any benefit of or any source of pride or honor from the words of Torah. So all of these examples of humility are showing how a Torah scholar who corresponds to the Midah of Tiferet should humble himself and bring him down to the people, whether they be his students, whether they be poor people, whether they be people who are Amei Haaretz, they don't particularly study or are connected to Torah, but the Torah scholar should try and make every effort to humble himself and be modest and come down to the level and just be with everybody else. Not to have like airs of superiority or aloofness over others. Yeah.
But how should you view those who are like not? It's okay with him that people around him are not like following Torah, or they're not doing Avodah Hashem, whatever.
It seems that here he's not talking about Rishoyim. In other words, in most Jewish texts, a person who was not observant was a Rasha. If he wasn't a Rasha, he was observant, even though he might not know what he's doing and why. Nowadays, we have kind of a different reality, where you have plenty of people, unfortunately, who are not observant, but it's not because the Rishoyim, by and large, they don't really know any better, or they didn't have an opportunity to expose themselves to it. So let's leave today's scenario aside for a moment. Right? In the context of most of the text, what that would mean is that till now, he's not really talking about Rishoyim. An Am Haaretz is somebody who doesn't know Torah, he doesn't have a mind for Torah, he's not interested in Torah, but that doesn't mean he's not observant. He would keep kosher, he would keep Shabbat, he would keep other things. He might not keep everything, he might not keep it in a meticulous way. And more often than not, he might not even know why he's doing it, other than the fact that his father told him to do it, and that's what society does. So such a person, he should humble himself towards, and he should, however, in the context of these types of texts, somebody who would not be observant would be a Rasha. That would be a different story. There, on the one hand, the Torah scholar should probably try and maintain some love for this person as a fellow human being, for a fellow Jew, but also be indignant about his transgressions, which he's doing intentionally. And that involves wickedness. Nowadays, you have plenty of people who are not observant, but it's not coming from wickedness. I think the same thing would apply. A person in general should make himself more approachable, and also be ready to approach people who are not observant, and not stay aloof and give the impression that we don't care about them and we have no interest in them, or that we look down on them and all those things. That doesn't mean to say the person should necessarily go looking for these opportunities. But if the opportunity arises, he's in a bus and he happens to be sitting next to a non-religious person. So rather than acting kind of in a cold, frigid way, distancing and not even looking at the person because you don't want to engage the person in a conversation, or if you're in a plane or whatever the case may be, or a train, so say shalom, how are you, shulchan, whatever, English, Hebrew, whatever language you speak, show recognition of the person, try and engage the person in some kind of a conversation. If the person is themselves standoffish, so it might be worth breaking the ice a bit, because the person might have preconceived prejudice against you. which might either be based on the way he's been brainwashed or based on the way he's been treated by other religious people like yourself. And either way, it would behoove you to try and engage this person in some type of positive, constructive behavior. If they don't feel comfortable with you because they've been poisoned, so at least you're offering some remedy to that poison. And if they've been poisoned by other religious people, then at least it gives them the opportunity to say, well, they're not all like that. Yeah? And that could be the basis for making some type of, peace between the religious and the not religious. However, if the person is wicked, nasty, and mean and abusive, so there's no reason why a person should have to subject themselves to that treatment, number one, and a person shouldn't have to view himself as having to defend the Torah against such an antagonist. I thought we might have a nice conversation, but it seems like you've got a lot of bitterness, and there's no reason why I should, and I don't even know if I'm qualified to diffuse that bitterness. So have a nice day, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to discuss these things in a more respectful fashion sometime in the future. But I'm not going to fight with you. That's not my point. You want to have a nice, respectful conversation? I'm more than happy to. You're my brother. Let's have a talk. But if you treat me like an enemy, so there's no reason why. I don't want to treat you like one, and I don't have to be subjected to be treatment like this. So have a nice day. But some people are proactively looking for these types of experiences. That's part of kiruv. You're familiar with the term kiruv, right? Mm-hmm. That's part of kiruv. Within the movement of kiruv, some are more proactive about it, some are less. Some are more liberal about what scenarios and what type of people and what context they'll engage conversation, and others are a little more conservative about that. That's already a different discussion. But in general, not everybody's cut out for kiruv. But even if a person's not, there's no reason to remain unnecessarily aloof from non-religious people when the opportunity presents itself, standing in line at the post office. So everybody's looking around, shuffling, looking at their note, waiting for the next, being preoccupied. If they're not talking on the phone or texting, of course, which nowadays serves as a great distraction from having to communicate with people, because you can just text yourself, for that matter, The main thing is that I shouldn't have to talk to anybody or prevent anybody from talking to me. But if you happen to be standing in line and there's somebody standing in front of you, behind you, you could say a nice word. Hi, shalom, how are you? Have a nice day. It's a nice day outside. How's the weather? Whatever. That's some news item, some sport event. That's the type of thing you're talking about. Talking to people about things which are permitted, but things which they can relate to. I'm not going to start giving them a Torah discourse about believing in God while you're waiting in line for the post office, unless they ask you. Yeah, if they don't ask you, you can talk to them about whatever is interesting to them, as long as it's not prohibited. Yeah. So now we're up to page Samach Hey. Page Samach Hey. Furthermore, the Torah scholar should be accustomed that in his being engaged in Torah study, the give and take of Torah study, meaning the exchange of ideas in Torah study, he should have in mind addressing his thoughts towards perfecting and rectifying the Shechina. Now, the Shechina, we've seen, corresponds to the sphere of Malchus. So that in his engaging in Torah study, he should have in mind that actually has a beneficial effect on the sphere of Malchus. How so? L'takno ulekashto el Tiferet, to repair it and perfect it, to adorn it towards Tiferet. How do we do this? Meaning, not only does he bring Tiferet down to Malchus, but he should have in mind adorning Malchus so that it attracts the attention of Tiferet. Dahainu halacha el emes. And one does this by making sure that he's learning halacha, which corresponds to Malchus el emes, to the truth, to the true understanding of Torah, which is Tiferet. So he's going to be saying that in one's learning, one should try to be learning the Torah study, the Torah topic, to the point of knowing what the practical halacha is. What's the practical manifestation of this Torah idea? How is it expressed in the physical realm of actual living? That's halacha. That would be malchus. So when a person is learning for the purpose of knowing how to do, like it says, lilmoid, almanas, v'lamed, v'lishmor, v'lasos, learning in order to teach, to learn, to teach, and also to actually do. What he's doing is he's bringing the malchus to Tiferes. He's connecting the practice of the Torah to its source, the ideas of the Torah itself. V'zeu machlokas l'shem shamayim. He says this is called a machlokas l'shem shamayim. How so? Dainu chesed u'gvura. He's bringing the extreme of chesed and the other extreme of gevura together in the middle, which is Tiferes, levol Tiferes, and Tiferes is like shamayim. Okay? So let's say, for example, you have a Torah discourse between two people. They have different opinions, different ideas. That's a machlokes. Right? There's a division, a distinction between their two approaches. One is chesed, one is gevura. What they should be looking to do is find the truth, which probably lies somewhere in between. That would be Tiferes. Okay? And a machlokes, the Shem Shemaim, would be a machlokes, a difference of opinion, where each side is interested in finding the truth that lies somewhere between us. So that would be a machlokes between Chesed and Gevurah, which should be L'Shem Shemaim, for the purpose of finding Shemaim. That's Tiferes. Why is Tiferes called Shemaim? Because Tiferes is that masculine sphera which rains down into Malchus, which, as we said, is like the earth, and enables Malchus then to bring forth its fruit and bounty into the physical world. So in a certain way, Tiferes is like the heaven, which provides for Malchus. So Machlokes, the Shem Shemayim, would be different opinions, Chesed and Gevurah, where the intention is not to show which one is right, but the intention should be what manifestation of the fusion of both of our opinions is right. We're looking for the truth. We're not looking to be right. So Machlokes, which is not the Shem Shemayim, it's not the Shem Tiferes, it's not to find the truth of the Torah, it's about saying, who's right? I'm right. No, you're not right. You're wrong. I'm right. Machlokes Shem Shemayim is not like that. Machlokes Shem Shemayim is, what's the truth? You say one thing, I say one thing. What's the truth? What you might be saying will be the truth. And if that's true, I'm happy because I found the truth. It doesn't matter who's saying it. If it's you or me, the main thing is that we both should experience the true understanding of the Torah. That would be Machlokes L'Shem Shamayim. The result, therefore, is going to be a resolution in order to know what to do. And that would be Lahaskim Halachimo, in order to fit the halacha now in accordance with the truth of the Torah that has been resolved. That would therefore be orienting Tiferes to Malchus. V'kol machlokes sheyotza min ashura zos, any machlokes which is outside of the parameter of this dynamic. It's not about finding the truth between Chesed and Gevurah. Yibadel mimeno, a person should separate himself from this. Have nothing to do with a machlokes which is not L'Shem Shamayim. Ki lo yirtzeh Tiferes lisached b'chutz afilu sheyeh b'divrei Torah, because Tiferes is not going to want to cleave to something which is outside of the parameters of the truth of Torah. Afilu sheyeh b'divrei Torah. Even if this machlokes is about things that have to do with Torah, but the intention is not to find the truth of Torah, it's rather to use the Torah to show that what I'm saying is true. Imudakanter, Sofe Gehinam. If this machlokes is really not to find the truth, it's just to brandish swords and show I'm stronger, or I am more convincing, or I'm more eloquent, or I'm more intelligent, has v'shalom, that's not going to be good. Ve'necha machlokes shelo yifgam et Tiferes, ela machlokes et Torah L'Shem Shamayim, shekol nesivosea shalom ve'ava b'soifa. You have no machlokes which is not L'Shem Shamayim, that is not going to damage Tiferes. Meaning any machlokes which is not the Shem Shamayim, it's going to affect the Tiferes. And by the way, the Gemara says Shamayim is called Shamayim because it's a kind of fusion of Esh and Maim. Shamayim. Esh Umayim. Corresponding to the fusion between Esh, fire, and Maim, water. Or Maim, which is Chesed, and Esh, which is Gvura. Tiferes is going to be the Shamayim. It's going to be the fusion. It's going to be the confluence of Maim and Esh together, which is Shamayim or Tiferes. Now the Machlokes of Torah, the Shem Shamayim, but a Machlokes of the Torah, which is the Shem Shamayim, Shekol Nisavei Shalom, V'Ava, V'Sufa. But a Machlokes of the Shem Shamayim, which is looking to find ultimately the truth of the Torah, that is going to result in Ahava B'Soifa, meaning it's going to result in a love, a fusion, a tranquility, a harmony in the end. This is based on a Gemara. I think the Gemara is in Eruvin, if I'm not mistaken, which talks about a verse which says, Es v'hev b'sufa. You can have Torah scholars who are arguing with one another. Et v'hav. The one says this, the other says that. Involved in the give and take of Torah. Yeah, the et v'hav b'sufa. They're arguing, but hav, which is like ahava, b'sufa in the end, b'sof. They will have love. So, like Hillel and Shammai is a machlokes, the Shem Shamayim. Let's try and just finish off this next session before we break. Somebody who derives benefit from words of Torah, meaning he learns Torah in order to derive some tangible benefit from it, like honor, glory, respect, recognition. He actually harms this midah, this sphera of Tiferes, which is holy. And he actually makes it profane and mundane, because he's not really involved in Torah because he appreciates the beauty, the value, the splendor, and the holiness of Torah. He's using it, like the sages say, as a hoe to break the earth with. He's just using it as an instrument for his profession to get some tangible, beneficial result out of it. So he's making it like any other mundane activity. However, if he's engaged in Torah in order for benefiting the spiritual realm, Ashrei Chelko, that would be the wonderful approach towards Torah. V'ikar kolhu, the main thing is l'tzaref dato b'mivchan ha'machshava, to purify his mind according to the crucible of one's thoughts, u'lepashpesh ba'atzmo derech maso matan, and to grapple with himself, give and take and searching. Im yimtzei shemetz erves davar, if he finds any impure intention in his Torah study, yachzor bo, he should retract from that, do tshuva on that. U'lo'olam yodeh al emes, and he should always be willing to accept the truth, even if it's different than what he thought, even if it's different from what he said, because he's interested in knowing what the Torah says, not having the Torah comply to what he says. Kedei sheyimotzei sham et tiferes midas emes, and in this way he'll be guaranteed to find the sephira of Tiferes, which is the true meaning of the Torah. And that all comes about through the basis of humility. Like I said, if he's interested in asserting himself or interested in gaining for himself, then more often than not he's going to skew the Torah in order to fit in with what he wants to get out of it. And therefore it's most likely not to be true. But if he's humbly approaching the Torah out of respect and love for it and appreciation for its holiness, humbly he will have his ears and his heart properly opened in order to ultimately gain the truth of the Torah and what it really means, and bring balance therefore to himself, to environment, and that'll have a balancing, harmonizing effect in the spiritual realm as well. Okay, that concludes this chapter. And tomorrow I'll be ready to start the next. Bezrat Hashem.